afternoon and welcome everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show right here on 93.3 Real Talk Radio. Warchant TV, good to be with you as always. Libations Friday edition. I'm Jeff, that's Tom. This is recorded. This is the last show we're doing before we leave for Ireland. I can't believe I just said that out loud, Tom Lang. This is the last show we're doing before we leave for Ireland. Once more, this is the last show that we're doing before we get on a plane to fly to Ireland. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. That is a fun Libations Friday topic in and of itself, and very exciting. I'm obviously very excited. No football practice today, so we can just have a conversation about a lot of things, and I'm excited about that as well. Hey, you know what I want to lead with? Well, first of all, hello, buddy. How you doing? You doing all right?
I'm doing well. Yeah, they're doing a mock game, but they don't let us in for that. And they're practicing tomorrow, and they're not letting us in for that. So I'm okay with it. It gives us a little bit more time to scramble, do some last-minute things that we need to do in order to get off Tallahassee's runways and go where we're going. I don't know where you're connecting through. I'm connecting through JFK. But looking forward to the Sunday venture. And then Monday, it'll be about keeping your eyes open, making sure that we make our way through the day on Monday. Don't crash, don't fall asleep, and go to bed at a reasonable Irish time hour. So that way, Tuesday, when it's time for the show, we are in perfect Irish time condition.
Well, we will be, because Tuesday is, it'll be 6 o'clock at night over there when we, we got all day to get ready.
If we need a nap, we'll get one. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to be all right. I want to begin today's show with a doff of the cap, by the way. I don't know if you knew this. I read it this morning. And I had no idea. But old Wally Amos, by the way, famous Amos Cookies, passed away at the age of 88. And what you might say, well, why am I saluting him? Did you know he was from Tallahassee, Florida?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, he was born here in 1936. He lived here until he was 12 years old. His father worked for the electric company in town, and then his parents got a divorce, and he moved to Harlem to be with his Aunt Della. And then from there in 1954, our Tallahassee's own Amos joined the Air Force. And then after that, he got a job at the esteemed William Morris Agency in New York, where he helped arrange tour dates for Simon and Garfunkel. At which point, along with a few other major artists, he decided to branch out on his own and move to Hollywood, goes to Hollywood, and is trying to start his own talent agency. It was failing miserably. He was right on Sunset Boulevard, Tom, where you and I have walked together. Also, where we ran into the most famous wig in the history of wigs.
Oh, the In-N-Out Burger on Sunset Boulevard.
That's correct. My man. Probably dead. Probably dead. Yeah.
Probably so. Also, the least subtle photograph ever taken of somebody that's intended to be candid, but wasn't candid in no way. Usually when you're trying to take a candid photo, you don't say, "Get a load of this, bleep. Look at this."
I couldn't believe it. Anyhow, so Amos was trying to branch out and start his own talent agency in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and picked a good time to do it. He's in the 60s, and you would have had the new Hollywood coming through in the 70s with Jack and Fonda and all them. But he couldn't seem to garner enough clients, and he was stressed out about it. So he remembered his Aunt Della's old cookie recipe, and at night, to keep from drinking all the time, he'd just bake cookies. And he started baking cookies, and he would hand them out to people as an inducement to be a client when they'd come over, because they're delicious cookies, and they were all natural, by the way. And he would hand those out to people, and people would tell him no repeatedly to signing with him, but they'd say, "By the way, your cookies are delicious. You got something here with these cookies." And he decided to open up a shop. Voila! My man starts famous Amos Cookies and becomes a gazillionaire. And how cool is that?
Yeah, I feel like if Mr. Earl was still kicking around at a corner pocket bar,
you would have known him.
You would be like, "Oh yeah, famous Amos, absolutely." That's a conversation we never had. But Tallahassee's own. All right. Every once in a while, you see Tallahassee found a way in a lot of pop culture in the 90s, early 2000s, and every once in a while you see that there's a tie. And so good for you, famous Amos. What a life well lived.
It's crazy, I mean, like you're on the cusp of failure, and then this backup plan to keep your sanity is baking cookies, and it turns out to be your calling. It turns out to make you a gazillionaire. I mean, everybody knows famous Amos. That's just nuts, And there he was in Tallahassee in 1936. It's pretty cool. So Tallahassee's own Dolphin of the Cap. That's how we begin. Speaking of money, it was in the chat yesterday. We never got to it because we were too busy talking about other things. I'll be honest with you. I somewhat loathe NIL conversations. Not for the reasons you might think, but people are obsessed with looking in people's pockets. They always have been. It's just a topic that just annoys me. Everybody cares about what everybody else gets paid. And that bothers me. But in this case, we are talking about the business of college football and how much things have changed and how NIL has changed the game. And so it is that we should probably address the subject of Florida State losing out on Josh Petty. And Josh, hey, listen, it's not just Florida State that lost out on Josh Petty. I said this before. If you sign with Georgia Tech, you clearly care very deeply about your education, like what you want to do, what you're trying to major in. Because I'll be honest, there's really no reason to not sign with Ohio State on the offensive line, who's the other team that he turned down. And of course, Florida State, all of whom are much more prestigious in NFL factories than Georgia Tech, which has been a dormant program for years, a useless football program, really an embarrassment, an eyesore to the ACC, until last year when Brent Key got him turned around and got him to a bowl game and had a winning record. And I could see where if you're an offensive lineman, Key sitting down across from you, who himself was an all-conference offensive lineman at Georgia Tech. That would be maybe when the head coach is a stud and was a stud on the offensive line at the school that he's selling. It's probably a little bit of an advantage, I think, in that realm. Okay, fair enough. But still, this is big business, and you have a chance to make millions in the NFL. All right, I say all that to say this. I wish Josh Petty nothing but luck, and he may end up coming to Florida State before this is all said and done. We'll see. I don't know. But when I read the story on On3 by Pete Nakos, it's called 5-Star Offensive Lineman Josh Petty lands multi-million-dollar NIL deal package with Georgia Tech. First of all, my jaw dropped at that number. Secondly, as I went through all of this, I saw that it's an annual contract at $800,000 a year. All right, well, the first thing I'm going to say to you, Tom, is that Josh Petty is 250 pounds. When I saw him here in Tallahassee, I thought he looked tiny. Relative. It's all relative. He's 6'4", 250. That's a big man in the world. But on the offensive line, he can't play right now. He can't play. He's not close to playing right now. I don't care if he's got the greatest technique in the history of technique. He's nowhere close to playing at 250 pounds. He's probably 2 years away from playing. You're telling me Georgia Tech is going to pay a kid $1.6 million over 2 years to sit his ass on the bench? That is insane, and in no way would I endorse Florida State doing that. You better come ready-made. I better get 3 years of you kicking ass and taking names. There's no chance I'm paying you $1.6 million. I'm betting that you're gonna eventually get to where you need to be as a tackle. You're gonna eventually get to 300 plus pounds, because I can't start you at 250, 260, 270. I can't. You're of no use to me. What are we doing here? That's nuts. I'm glad Florida State didn't pay it.
So interestingly enough, in that article, it said that that's not even the high. It's the going rate right now is $750,000, something around $1 million if you're going to be a borderline 5-star tackle or the number one tackle in a given class. And obviously there's a couple of those kids out there that are rated higher than Josh Petty that will command over $1 million a year. Now, maybe those players who are 5-star tackles have a chance to start as a true freshman, or certainly will start in their second year. But it's such a fascinating dynamic, because you've got an overpay for a high school prospect versus whatever the starter at Georgia Tech is making right now problem. That's on the horizon now. that article comes out, I'm sure Georgia Tech starting left tackle or right tackle is walking into Brent Key's office and saying, the hell, bro? We're one of the better offensive lines in this conference, and I'm starting for you, and I have started for you. I'm not making $800,000. I don't think they are. I don't think the starter right now is making that kind of coin. So you've got that problem. But then the other thing is we are rolling into an era where there is the revenue sharing provision with the congressional settlement, where athletic departments can have upwards of $22 million earmarked for athletic payment, NIL payment. Now, it's up to the athletic department to set the budget per sport. But let's be real here. The bulk of this is going to be going to football if it's an athletic department that wants to make money for all sports. So are we entering into an era where everybody's just going to get paid more because there is more money coming from a brand new source, which is the athletic department itself, no longer just boosters and interested observers with collectives? Maybe that's some of the math that they're doing here. But I would agree with you. If you're going to invest $800,000, and let's assume that your budget is $8 million, right? So you've got $8 million, $800,000 going to this one kid. And that's what your budget is for one class. 10% of your budget is for somebody you're not going to see play for 2 or 3 years. I mean, that's a tough sell. Now, Georgia Tech has to make decisions like that in order to catch up, because Ohio State may say, no, we've got a lot of people that we need to pay a lot of money, and I don't need somebody who's going to be riding the pine, because that's going to create all kinds of problems in my locker room. Georgia Tech may have to take that type of risk for a project, and it's a fit for them because of the academic side of things. But it's just, if you're Florida State and you're looking at a 4 or 5 star edge rusher who's top 10 in his position, you're looking at a tackle, you're looking at a quarterback, and give me the players that are going to play sooner so that the issues in the locker room are minimized, because that's you've got a lot of decision making that needs to be handled before you even offer this kid that kind of money, because there are ramifications for paying him $800K a year. Because I think you're right, judging by where his body is now, unless they've got Josh Storms or somebody akin to that, he's not going to be ready till his 3rd year of college, and he'll be $1.6 million richer, plus his academics, plus the Scally and the cost of living on top of all that before he even plays it down.
Yeah, I got sorry, I thought my mic was muted. I'm sitting here mashing the button. Well, right. Like, for example, the wide receiver that we did not get, is it Jeremiah Smith, the wide receiver that went to Ohio State?
Yeah, right.
The all-world, going to be a superstar his first year at Ohio State receiver. Yeah, I'd pay $800,000 for him, because he's going to come in and start for me now and change games.
Absolutely. I'd pay more than that.
Petty is not going to do that. He's not going to do that. I get Georgia Tech's predicament. Fine. But, man, so when people get mad, I'm like, well, I can't believe we lost out. Oh, I can. They were willing to pay the kid $800,000 a year to sit on the pine.
Well,
no.
The problem is also the nature of the reporting of this. This is because it's in its infancy, people are taking more obvious risks in reporting. And if you're saying, wow, you're criticizing an on-3 guy, yeah, I am. He
we don't care about criticizing on 3. I'll criticize on 3 all damn day.
Yeah, so this guy he mentions the agency. Towards the end of the article, he talks about Brian whoever of Lift 'em Up agency, whatever. Because the dad, well, I mean, I don't know. It's something ridiculous. It's
Power Up Sports, by the way.
Power Up Sport, Lift 'em Up agency, whatever. Power Up Sports. Great. That's awesome.
Yes.
Because there are people who want to be the next Drew Rosenhaus. There are people who want to be the next Sexton, of this space, of the NIL space. And so deals are made for information being shared over this particular time. Like, well, this young man's father said, well, I don't know what to do about, what's the going rate for somebody at Texas? I needed to hire somebody. I mean, just these little deals that are being struck in order to give us the number. Like, I get it. People are interested in what's the number, what's the going rate. But this is just, it's a very weird time, because I feel like what's happening now is a story like this is going to help artificially escalate the price. Like this is the real number. I believe that. I believe $800K is the number for Josh Petty. But man, this thing is going to escalate. And I think we're getting to a place now where unionization may be something that the university wants here soon. They might want to, because this is like first round draft pick, NFL, unlimited, Sam Bradford type contracts kind of. That's where this is going for players out of high school. And this market needs to be regulated. This is the first time once I read that number and I see the way that this conversation is going, I'm starting to think, man, they might need a unionization here on the administrative side so that these costs don't fly wildly out of control.
Quote, we don't know the NIL space, said James Petty. We don't know what's decent. We have to trust people like Brian Davis. He did a fantastic job of helping us understand these things. We don't have a crystal ball into what a kid gets if they go play at Texas, or what does a kid get if they go play at USC. NIL has changed this world tremendously, but if you go on this journey and accept this without having the information, it could be drastically different. NIL, has changed the landscape. It has changed how people look at it. It's changed the opportunity for young men. Well, it's done all of those things. That's true. And it sounds like Mr. Petty is at least of sound mind in helping his kid go through this process. That's great.
Correct. Not criticizing the dad in that aspect.
Of course not.
But what I'm saying is, I don't know about how to maybe handle certain situations with hygiene. That's why I turned to manscaped.com.
Without question. Yeah.
It's a PR article on top of a news article, and these lines are being very much blurred. They already have been in media in general, but in this particular realm, these things are being blurred. And I'm sure that Georgia Tech doesn't like this article. I'm sure that collectives around the country don't necessarily like this article because it's providing leverage to the agency and not allowing the market to bear out as perhaps it would otherwise. So this is a very complicated topic, and I find it interesting, but I wonder if before long universities or power conferences, reorganization of the sport, might not just want to regulate this thing before it gets a little out of control.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. And yes, and it is all changing right before our eyes. And when you read an article like this, you think, well, okay, well, man, we really have shifted in a way that I did not anticipate this quickly anyhow. So we're at a place now where when you find out that Florida State does or does not get a player, you have to hesitate with a knee-jerk reaction of anger and frustration, right? You have to wait and see, well, maybe there was a good reason we didn't get that player, and one that I agree with.
Right. Well, and also in the article, Florida State, an unnamed source of Florida State is quoted saying that it did not turn into a bidding war. Well, first of all, that source would be dumb to say it turned into a bidding war at Florida State. Because if it did, let's just say it actually did, and it was a bidding war and we lost. You come off as cheap, or you come off as somebody that doesn't have what it takes to go make the bids happen. So, from a chessboard standpoint, that unnamed source at Florida State couldn't tell you if it was a bidding war or not. My thing is, I agree with you. I'm not going to invest nearly $2 million into a player who doesn't make the field for anything other than garbage time in their first 2 years on campus. If you lost out on a Jeremiah Smith because you weren't willing to go up an extra $200K, I'd be pissed about that. So let's be transparent about that too. It's not about defending the battle's end or defending. If it's a player like Jeremiah Smith, that a couple $100K can put you over the top, you make that deal.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, we didn't lose out on Jeremiah Smith because of money. I think
correct. I'm just saying, but if we did, I'd be like, come on, guys.
Oh, no, that would be frustrating.
You would spend the money, but Josh Petty is not the place. You spend nearly $2 billion because he wouldn't play here. Certainly, maybe Georgia Tech, maybe they might have to press him at Georgia Tech because they're not as good. But we certainly wouldn't play him until he was 20, 21 years old at minimum.
Well, he's not even close. I'm not. This is not a shot. This is not me taking a shot at the kid. I'm sure he's a great kid, and I hope he does well. I mean, I don't root against these guys. That's fine. When I saw him walk past, I was like, well, it's going to be a minute before that kid ever plays. And this is before I knew of any deal. This is before I was thinking about it in terms of we're going to get him.
Yeah.
And, I don't love recruiting. I care deeply that we win in recruiting, but I don't love, all the stuff that goes into covering recruiting, right? So when he walked by, I was standing down on the field, and our own Matt Lasser turned to me and said, hey, that's the Petty kid. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's him. Because I knew who he was. I knew we were trying to get him. And he was walking by, and he was visiting. It's like a week ago in camp, whatever it was, 10 days ago.
Correct. He came here just before his decision. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he was walking by and I looked at him and then I actually said to Matt, I go, oh God, he's tiny. And he goes, oh yeah, no, he's going to have to get a lot bigger. And I was like, oh, I'm sure he's going to be a wonderful player. He's got length. He's tall, he's got a good base. But my thought was, damn, I wish he wasn't that small, because when you bring in a 5-star, you get excited about the fact that you won a 5-star talent and you want to see him play as soon as possible, as soon as humanly possible. Of course, on the line of scrimmage, it's a little bit different. And so when he walked by, I was like, oh man, that's at least a year, probably 2. You just can't add 50 pounds of muscle. It's tough to do. It takes time. Certainly you have to have the right nutrition and some other things to get to where you need to be, commonly known as the Bama table. With all of that proper nutrition, it's going to take 2 years to get him anywhere near the size he needs to be. So good luck with that, Georgia Tech. $1.6 million to watch a kid go to class.
Yeah, that's it. But the issue is, moving forward, if this is resetting the market, and these articles of lift 'em up organizations and agency LLC are going to continue and persist, you are looking at a potential reality of grabbing players and investing upwards of $1.5 million into players before they ever play. And if that's the case, give me the portal. Give me the portal over a lot of high school recruiting. I know you need high school recruiting. I get it. What I'm saying is, if I'm in a place where I'm looking at the pie chart of how I'm divvying up $10 million or whatever, because you're seeing these numbers now come out, $6 to $8 million for high school recruiting budgets only. So that tells me that if that's the case, if that's real, then you're talking about 10, maybe a little bit more for the portal. If I'm coming down to a decision point and I don't know how to spend my last couple mil, I'm going to the portal, man. Give me the 20-year-old or the 21-year-old that has at least played some semblance of college football before a project that may or may not turn out. I mean, like, not every 3-star is going to be a hit, but Andre Otto is in his second year. I think he's going to play meaningful snaps this year for Florida State. Meaningful snaps. I'm sure he didn't cost $800,000 over 3 years. You know what I mean? Like, you're really, in terms of evaluation, going to have to do a dance between the Yankees and the Athletics. You're going to have to do a dance between those two organizations, because you do want top flight talent, but you've got to find some diamonds in the rough that'll cost you nominal money versus this kind of money to have a kid, like you're saying, go to class.
Well, and I once again, I would say your head coach had better be a very, very, very good talent evaluator. I mean, when we're investing these kinds of dollars into players, I need to know that my coach is excellent at projecting what a person is going to be in 2 and 3 years. Because that first year that I write that check is a kick in the cojones, while that kid just sits there lifting weights, trying to get bigger and stronger, which they all have to do. And it's an investment you have to make, like you pointed out. It still hurts. It's still not a lot of fun. And I better know that in about a year or 2, that kid's going to be a stud. That's how I can lay my head on the pillow at night and say, it's all right. It's all right. He's going to be a star for us. That dude better evaluate the hell out of what he's looking at.
Oh, we better have one hell of a shrink on staff too, because you're going to have to do a full psych evaluation of a 16, 17-year-old to make sure that they're going to be stable enough to handle this and not screw off their first year because they know they're not playing and they just want to hit the bars, and they're going to get paid $750,000 to do that. I mean, so if you thought that the meat market was at the NFL Combine, man, the volatility of what a high school player turns into at the collegiate level, you're going to have a meat market at every single big-time college football program, because they got to know that their investment is that they have the odds in their favor. They're not all going to hit, but I don't want a coin flip when I decide to cut a check this size to a kid.
I want certainty. I want 100% certainty. I want my coach to walk into me if I'm cutting the check saying, when he's a junior, he's an All-American. You got your money, coach. By the way, if he's not, you're fired. I mean, this is like, this is tough. This is tough. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Jeff Cameron Show, not live today, but recorded just before we would ordinarily go on. And that is so that we can get everything together and head off to Ireland. Actually, really excited to kind of get away from going to practice and start watching some damn games, Tom. That's I had a conversation with a buddy last night. I think we're all having conversations with buddies right about now. Noles everywhere, talking to one another about expectations for the season. And along the way, what you encounter is that you get a wide array of opinions. You're always going to have the eternal optimist that believes every team is going to win the national championship. And I usually exclude their opinions. You have the unwavering negativity of the eternal pessimist, who is always predicting Florida State to lose 4, 5, 6 games, no matter when you talk to them. And I exclude their opinion as well. And then we get in the middle where I still think this season, the realist, the pragmatic approach to projections of what a Florida State team could be. And I've got a lot of people that I would consider to be, of sound mind that feel like 9-3 would be a good season. And I find that interesting. I think when you brought DJ in, you did not bring DJ in to go 9-3. I think you brought DJ in so that your floor would be 10-2. Your floor.
It's not just DJ. It's you invest in Malik Benson, all the defensive linemen that you brought in, the 2 SEC guards that you bring in. I mean, like you went for it. It's the safeties you bring in. I could keep going on or a little. Cam Riley, like you don't do that to go 9-3. I'll stretch it. The folks on the YouTube audience got to see that Q. It's, to me, this is a year where the trenches should pave the way for you. I was talking to my dad yesterday about it. And, he said, so what do you think? I said, well, for the first time in 4 years, this is a group that I watch in camp and I say it's not as good as its predecessor. It's just not.
Yeah.
But how could you be? He goes, really? I said, well, yeah, I mean, they did go 13-0 last year with myriad injuries. So, that's a really high bar to clear or match. We've done it before. In 13 and 14, we went 13-0. We were ACC champions. Like, they did it very different ways, but it can be done. The one thing I would say is the trenches should put us in position to be in every game. They should, because I think we're really good. At least the starting group on both sides is really good. I think the depth is quite good on the offensive line, and the defensive line, it could be as well. So if you don't have as many studs at skill positions on offense, you should still, if you just run a basic play on first down, be in 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 6. You should still, if you're in 2nd and 6, be in 3rd and 3 because you run a basic play, a basic running play against most of the opponents that you're going against. And that you're going to be, in terms of talent-wise, playing head-to-head. In the Miami game, if they're still motivated in November or late October, that remains to be seen. Notre Dame, Clemson, it might be a race to 24. It might be a race to 21. Who knows? But the trenches should put us in position to win the vast majority of these games, and you're just hoping for some skilled players to emerge. So I would agree with you. You bring in a ton of new pieces to this roster that are all veteran, that are in that money year, and you're going for it in a sense. You don't go for it and go 9-3 and call it a success. I'm sorry, you just don't.
That's the point I was making. They could go 9-3 and it wouldn't be a disaster, but their actions in the offseason tell me that they were trying to avoid an 8-4 or 9-3 season. They chose, by bringing in the people that they did, not to have the temporary setback for the sake of development. Now, you could have just started this season with Brock Glenn. You could have said, okay, we're going to go with Brock. But when you start a new quarterback, somebody that's never been the starting quarterback, I understand he was thrust into action in really, really untenable situations. And that's not fair to him. But this would have been, in earnest, his starting job, right? He would have won this job, we think. And because of that, you're going to lose a couple of games where he makes the kind of mistakes that quarterbacks who are green make. This is what happens. There's a learning curve to playing big time college football. And when you're a quarterback and it's your first year starting and you've got to play Clemson's defense, Notre Dame's defense on the road, Miami's defense on the road, I mean, those games alone, you would have seen some hiccups, I do believe. And so you were probably going to brace for an 8-4 type campaign. But somewhere in there, they realized, you know what? We've got enough coming back, and there's enough out there in the portal, and we've got real momentum off of that 13-0 season. We don't have to take a step back. We got a little lucky, guys. Alabama's legendary head coach just retired. There's a free-for-all for their roster. Let's see if we can't go bring in 3 or 4 of their players. Let's go grab that kid who just entered the portal from LSU, who's a burner, and see if we can't get him at a reasonable number, you know? And all of a sudden, those people said yes. Those numbers worked out, and you did bring them in. And once you did that, you changed what your expectations were. And I think that their thought was, we want to back up the 13-0 with something akin to that. Maybe it's unreasonable to say that we're just going to go undefeated every year, but certainly you made these moves to win the ACC championship again.
Yeah, agreed. If you brought in a bunch of Jalen Browns, though, they're outside of the redshirt year, it's a different thing than bringing in a Marvin Jones Jr., Durajaye, Lolahea, Richie Leonard, Jalen Lucas, Malik Benson, Roydell Williams, Devontae Brown. I mean, like, you're bringing in players that are upperclassmen. So the upperclassmen sends a different message than a bunch of redshirt freshmen that you're looking for long-term development out of. And there are some transfers that you do want to bring in because we missed on them on the trail. But, if we can develop them, then this is going to be a long-term win for us. That's great. Like, anything Keziah Holmes provides this year is from that latter category. They brought him in knowing that it's for tomorrow. It's not for now. A lot of these transfers they brought in are for today. And when I listed all those guys, I didn't list DJU because that one is obvious. That's obvious. So, yeah, I agree that the question is, when you define success, it gets a little bit interesting. Is getting to Charlotte, whether you win or you lose, a successful season? Is getting to Charlotte and missing the playoff? You lose the ACC championship game, you go 11-2, and you're out because the Invitational wants Ole Miss at 8-4 to get in there instead. Like, how would you define success? Is it zero sum? You must win the ACC championship, therefore you're in the playoff, or you must make the playoff, whether you win the ACC or not, at large or conference champion, don't care. You have to get into the playoff field for this to be a successful season. That to me is more interesting than a record discussion. But even still, if you want to have the record discussion, you got to win 10 games this year, minimum. Got to. And I'm talking out of the 12-game slate. I'm not talking unless you have myriad injuries, which we all allow for. 10-2 is the minimum here, man.
It's hard to say that 10-2 is the minimum with as much production as you lost last year, but I agree with you because of what you did just decide to bring in. I also think having more than a functional offensive line, but rather a really good offensive line. I talked with somebody yesterday in the game, played the game, knows the game, and we were going through position groups, and his contention was that Florida State's offense, he had heard you and I talking about the offensive line and where we thought they ranked. And I, my whole diatribe the other day where I said, okay, I'm trying to compare us constantly to Georgia, who I think is the preeminent program in college football right now. And I said, I go segment by segment when I do that. And I was trying to grade out based on returning starters, number of players that are preseason All-Americans, all-conference, whatever it might be. I was trying to grade out where Florida State was in comparison to the elite teams in college football. And I went through here and saw, let's see, his assessment, mine assessment, back and forth in a text. Yeah. So he said, look, I think Georgia's offensive line, no-brainer, better than Florida State's. Agreed. And so do the NFL scouts. I mean, that's one of the things that you do. Just go look at the sites that project players and where they're going to get drafted. And you can look at an LSU offensive line. You can look at a Georgia offensive line. You can look at an Alabama offensive line. You can look at maybe Oklahoma State. A lot of people feel very highly about two of their guys, Notre Dame, a couple of their guys, but their left tackle just got lost for the year. And he was one of those guys that projects to be really high up there. So as I went through all of this, I realized that, golly, that puts us at like the 6th or 7th best offensive line in the country, Tom. If you have the 6th or 7th Okay, let's go worst case scenario. Call them the 10th. A lot of people think Tennessee's offensive line's better. Okay, Florida State is the 10th best offensive line, worst case scenario in the country this year, projected.
Yeah.
You better win 10 games with a top 10 offensive line.
If you're going to have a badass defense on top of it, yeah, agreed. Because we believe this defensive line, at least the starting group, is top 10, at minimum. I'm trying to shoot low here to get where everybody would agree in the bell curve that you were talking about earlier. You've got a top 10 defensive line. I think you got a top 15 offensive line, probably is top 10. But again, I'm trying to widen it a little bit.
Yeah,
you've got a top 25 quarterback. You've got a top 15 running back room. You've got a top 50 wide receiver room. So that would be the issue. Probably a top 15 tight end room. Then your defensive back core is top 10. Your linebacking core, top 30. Maybe something like that. But what am I doing? I'm most of these segment groups, special teams, kicking game, top 5. So when you're going through all of these position groups, I'm landing mostly inside the top 12. That's a playoff berth. That's a playoff berth, my man.
Yeah, I think there would be major pushback on your ranking of our receivers. I mean, a lot of people think that group is 9th or 10th in the ACC.
I said top 50, not 15, 5-0.
Yeah, I mean, if you're 8th or 9th in the ACC, I don't know if you're going to be in the top 50.
Okay, all right. There ain't 5 power conferences anymore.
No, I know. I'm not saying they couldn't be a top 50 receiving core. I think in terms of returning production, they're definitely not.
No, agreed. And again, what I'm doing this to where everybody can say, well, of course they're within this parameter. I think they're better than that. I think they're better than 50th there's only 120 teams, for God's sake. We're in the top 50. I think we're better than that, but this defensive backcourt might be skewing our viewpoint. But it all works part and parcel. And I think most of these other rankings are fair to, maybe slightly insulting to Florida State in some areas, but in most cases, we're landing somewhere in playoff range. And if you're that good, that consistent, and this is the schedule you have before you, again, you've got more losable games than last year probably, but you're looking at Clemson, SMU, Miami, Notre Dame, maybe Florida. I don't know. I mean, you've got to win. Let's just call it 4 games and eliminate Florida. You got to win 2 out of the 4, and you're a 10-win football team. Come on, guys. I'd like to in the 4 games where you're wondering about circumstance, bye weeks, relative talent, I think we need to go at least 2-2 in those circumstances.
The other thing is, when we're just talking about perspective going into a season, the conversation kind of centers around what is a reasonable expectation when you talk with your buddies. Everybody's doing that now before we get on a plane to go to Ireland because it's here. It's finally here. Right? It's go time now. 1 week from tomorrow, we're playing football. The game kicks off and it counts. That's crazy. But anyhow, the point would be this. Mike has earned the benefit of the doubt. Mike gets the benefit of the doubt because of what he has been able to accomplish here in a relatively short period of time after taking a job in horrific sets of circumstances, COVID being chief amongst them. And now here we are, fresh off an undefeated regular season in an ACC championship. So he gets the benefit of the doubt. This is the season where he either sustains the benefit of the doubt for some years to come or no longer has it. Because if they go 8-4, you don't get the benefit of the doubt going in the next season.
Yeah. And what's goofy about it is, again, I'm walking off those practice fields thinking that the future is assured. And in many position groups where last year that just wasn't the case. Like, they've done a good job of building up the ranks. It's just a matter of some of those depth pieces being consistent week in and week out when it's their time, when they get their 20 reps, their 30 reps. And then also your frontline guys being what they're supposed to be. We're predicating a lot of this on thinking that the offensive line is top 10. And if they are, I mean, damn it. How many times do you see a team where you're like, they don't have anybody, but their O-line provides their quarterback 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I mean, we can't guard somebody that long. And that is where my hope lies, is that the pass pro is good enough to make the receivers better. The running game is good enough to make the receivers better. So your big weakness is elevated by the offensive line in two different ways.
My friends at Tried and True, you'll see the QR code swipe up on the screen here in just a moment. Don and Joe do great work working with people all over the state. And they're guys that are true Seminoles, Tried and True. If you want to know, go check out the website, triedandtrueconsulting.com, or swipe that QR code that you see on your screen. They're looking right now to try to hook you up with their ad program. It gives you a boost in terms of exposure for your company and your services. So you'll reach many more people. They put up these ad boards, also known as TVs. They'll come in, put a 55-inch television in your business if you got the wall space for it. 2/3 of that can just be for you to watch TV if you want, with the bottom third being something that you are promoting your services. Again, perhaps it could be ads for other things. The ideal businesses for the free ad board: dentist office, medical offices of any kind, those waiting rooms, auto repair, perhaps a car dealership, for example, those waiting rooms, community banks, waiting areas, a restaurant or a bar. If you want to get in on this, make sure you reach out to Don or Joe. Noles through and through. Noles helping Noles, making money, saving you money, and giving 10% of their net revenue back to the Battle's End. Go check out the website, triedandtrueconsulting.com. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. So we, again, really quick, short segment, because we're yappers. We're yappers over here on the Jeff Cameron Show. Imagine that. We've been asked again by several of you, and so it is that I will point out. Tom will flash it up here on the screen. We'll let everybody know exactly where we're going to be in dates and times and all that. So Friday, August the 23rd, once again, my brother's birthday, 6 to 9 p.m. Irish time. The Old Storehouse is the venue. The address is awesome and truly Irish sounding. 3 Crown Alley, Temple Bar, Dublin. That's the Friday. So we're working backwards here. Shows, the Jeff Cameron Show, live from 6 to 8 p.m. will happen on Tuesday. It'll happen again on Wednesday. And it'll happen again, as you saw there, on Friday. We're doing live shows there and having a good time at the Old Storehouse. Same place, all 3 of those shows. Thursday, we're at Leopardstown, which is a racetrack. That's an entirely different deal, guys. Leopardstown is awesome. It's beautiful. I've been there. It's an awesome time. It's kind of, I compared it in a weird way. It's not set up this way, but it's kind of like the Battery in Atlanta, where you're going to a baseball game, right? Or you're going to the racetrack to watch a race, but there's a concert going on, and there's a bar, and there's a live show. It's the Jeff Cameron Show. And over there's this, and this. So they've got a lot of things going on. It's kind of like an all-day thing. I think it's like $30 to get in, and you just go in and you kind of do your own thing. And then, of course, you can gamble and do all that stuff too. So that's what that is. But that's a different deal than the shows we're talking about at the Old Storehouse. Okay, so that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's called the Final Bulmers Live at Leopardstown, taking place Thursday, August 22nd. So again, it's almost like a ballpark and a carnival thing.
You like Bulmers?
It's not Tampa Bay Downs, and
no. It's not a deadbeat mafioso. Yeah, no.
It's a complex. It's a total complex.
It's stunningly beautiful, I might add. Do you like Bulmers? Have you had Bulmers?
Is that what? That's a brand, the Final Bulmers.
Bulmers is a drink. It's a cider.
Oh, I'll have to try it.
You'd like it. They mix it with Guinness. You can have a half Bulmers and half Guinness.
I'll probably do that because I'll be parched from the very, very hot conditions at 68 degrees.
Yeah, Tom, you do a half Bulmers, half Guinness. It's delicious. A full Bulmers is good too. But yeah, you know how it is. You can only have so much cider. I'm not trying to take shots at the folks at the Bulmers, but
even like apple juice, it's just too acidic, man. It's not good on the stomach. Not good.
Yeah. So those are the places we're going to be. All right. Hour number 2 forthcoming. Stay with, of course, Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio. And as always, Warchant TV. Hello to everybody in the chat. Sorry, we're not able to interact like we normally do because this is recorded, but we wanted fresh content. We'll see you in hour number 2.